But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house barrage, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And I was just reminded, literally just a minute before I went on just now, that the International Court of Justice issued their advisory opinion today. They had been asked by the UN General Assembly a couple of months ago to render an advisory opinion on essentially the legality of Israel's entire occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. And I was reminded of this because there was a statement from Israel that showed up in my feed saying it's the worst thing that could possibly have happened, and it's like, okay, Israel's angry. Let's see what the long-awaited sequel to the decision, the advisory opinion 20 years ago about the wall, what that looks like, and it's long. I mean, even the summary, I'm reading the summary right now just because I wanted to be able to talk about it a little bit on stream. But even the summary itself, which I'm about to just link in chat, is 32 pages. The actual advisory opinion is 83 pages. There's a lot to go over, but the conclusion is the basic conclusion is what anyone who knows anything about international law would have already said. It would have already mentioned. Let's see. That's the summary link already dropped in there. So here's the full opinion for anyone who's interested. But the short version is that the ICJ confirmed that every single aspect of Israel's presence in the West Bank and Gaza is illegal, and East Jerusalem. Literally basically they confirmed everything that everybody who knows anything about this has been pointing out for ages, like that these settlements are a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which doesn't allow the civilian population of an occupying power to be transferred to occupied territory, that the annexation violates the prohibition on territorial aggrandizement by force. Literally, I mean, I just skimmed over the summary just now, but they did not come out in favor of Israel on really anything. Let me just see, I have the... Okay. So, they unanimously found they had jurisdiction. 14-1 decided to grant the opinion. Sebutinde, who was like the lone vote other than the Israeli judge on the genocide question, and came up with this idea that somehow just because there's very clear international law on what genocide is doesn't mean that it isn't a political question and therefore should not be brought up in court. She's kind of always in dissent anytime the ICJ does anything good. Okay. 11 votes to 4. The opinion is of the opinion that the state of Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful. 11 to 4 again. is of the opinion that the State of Israel is under an obligation to bring to an end its unlawful occupation, unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory as rapidly as possible. Let me just put this up on screen so we can all see it while I'm just looking over this. So, yeah, where the hell? There we go. Yeah, let's see. So, by 14-1, is of the opinion that the State of Israel is under an obligation to cease immediately all new settlement activities and to evacuate all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. Only vote against is Sebutinde. Let's see. Is of the opinion that the State of Israel has the obligation to make reparation for the damage caused to all the natural or legal persons concerned in the occupied Palestinian territory. 14-1 on that. Sebutinde voted against. Sebutinde just has decided to be on the wrong side of history, or the right side of the US, which is often the same thing. By 12-3 is of the opinion that all states are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of the State of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, and not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by the continued presence of the State of Israel in the OPT. Let's see, yeah, Sebutinde voted against and two others who I'm not familiar with, so... okay, 12-3 is of the opinion that international organizations, including the UN, are under an obligation I'm looking at the wrong... Let me see, let me scroll here. Are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of the State of Israel in the OPT. And then 12-3 again, our friends Sebutinde, Abraham, and Aurescu are once again in the minority on this. Okay, so the opinion that the UN, especially General Assembly, which requested this opinion, and the Security Council should consider the precise modalities and further action required to bring an end as rapidly as possible to the unlawful presence of the State of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory. Now, with these judgments, there's no surprise that this is the legal opinion. The surprise is that black letter law was actually, respected. Anytime that happens, it is kind of a big surprise because that doesn't happen very often in this particular area. Although the ICJ actually has a pretty good record, which is why Israel hates it. It will be very interesting. Let me see. The German judge is Nolte, and I don't see him on dissent on anything. Let me see. Sebutinde is dissenting. Oh, Nolte will be having a hell of a time when he gets home. Okay, so that is something that is definitely worth a read. Of course, there is the reality that that's unlikely to mean a whole lot. I mean, because the state of the law was actually clear before this, and if the state of the law was going to decide this thing, this would have been sorted out decades ago already, because none of this was seriously controversial to begin with. But, I mean, it does, particularly for, states like Germany, that like to pretend to be big believers in international law when it suits them, this will put some additional pressure on them. Potentially, or at the very least, it can be used to put some additional pressure on them. They will feel the need to explain themselves, and it will be interesting to see what they have to say, though we can be fairly certain it will be bullshit. Okay, so how's everybody doing, chat? I got some interesting bullshit to look at. There's, Xander Hole says, Biden's good and I'm tired of pretending he's not. You've been pretending he is. See, the Young Turfs declare war on Biden. Jen can't make any arguments. That's Xander Hole again. We have Vush, everybody's favorite monotone nonce, who oh fuck, sorry. Please nobody freeze frame that. Who says Destiny gets banned for being right, and when Vush is gonna tell us that Destiny was right, that's gonna be fucked up. Because Destiny, it just isn't right about things. That's not what Destiny is for. And then, well, I decided to check out this bullshit Progressive Victory Project grift that we were looking at a little bit. And there was one on here from, actually, it's a while back. It's Vush again. PV, Progressive Victory, volunteers get their political questions answered by Vush. Ooh, hello, another persona. Oh, hey. Oh, Joe K. Cool. Good to see you. And then we've got the Young Turfs. MSNBC's Joy Reid, who is horrible, says, the indefensible about Trump and Biden. I mean, she sucks. She was the one who claimed that time-traveling hackers were the reason that all this sorts of fucking homophobic shit was on her blog. So, yeah. But on the other hand, for the Young Turfs to say something is indefensible does not make it so. In fact, they have a record of saying things that are undefensible that are actually pretty defensible. We've also got another, this is a short, the Young Turfs one. Biden makes devastating blunder at NAACP convention. Hello, River Rune, welcome back. And then we've got more Young Turfs. The U.S. closes humanitarian aid pier de Gaza. The fake humanitarian aid pier. And I'm half curious if they acknowledge that actually no humanitarian aid was ever delivered via that pier. The one thing it was ever used for was a big massacre in Nusayrat. And that right after that they dismantled the fucking thing. Then we've got Jenkin Jordan's spicy debate on R-Fuck Jr. And Jenk challenges R-Fuck Jr. on Gaza. Heated to the Young Turfs debate, is Israel really America's ally? And Jenk's surprising defense of Matt Gaetz. Yeah, I mean, so we've got a bunch of stuff. And then, let's see, we got some, I mean, there's some Darman bullshit too. We got a bunch of bullshit to look at. Any of that bullshit look good to you? Anything in particular catch your opinion? Oh, hello, Imperialism Bad. I think I remember you being... Oh, right! Ah, você é o gajo do Portugal. Ah, eu lembro agora. Ah. Yes. So, any of those spark anyone's interest as we get this shit started? Where do I find this? If you've got a link for it, drop it in the chat or in the Discord. I don't know if Nightbot will let you drop links in the chat, but you can always drop it in the Discord. I got that open right now, so yeah, I mean, totally check that out. Well, see you later. I will be back at 4:30 on Twitch, and then right now, but tomorrow, right here. But right here. So, good to see you, though. Yeah, so, yeah, if you drop me a link to this, AOC IG Live thing. Other than that, does anyone have any particular strong preferences? I'm kind of curious of well, all this stuff. The is really Israel really America's ally one will be bullshit on so many levels, because it's Cenk arguing with Zionist ghoul Ben Glebe, who was part of the racist mob that attacked the UCLA Palestine Solidarity encampment, if I understand correctly. And so Cenk is going to be giving apparently the view that the U.S. is doing imperialism wrong and needs to do imperialism better without Israel, which it's not really clear how that would work, and I guess Ben Glebe, the Zionist ghoul, is going to be saying what a wonderful ally Israel is to the U.S., or something like that. Let's see, maybe start out with one of these shorts. But, kind of curious what this NAACP blunder is.
The idea that corporate-owned housing is able to raise your rent $300-400 a month or something, under what I'm about to announce, they can't raise it more than $55.
Oh, wait. Okay, so he was not... I was gonna say, that actually sounds pretty good. I don't really see how a U.S. president could do that on the federal level, but I mean, that would be a good thing. That would be fucking based. That would, unironically, that would be absolutely pog as hell. But apparently he did not mean to say this. Like, I mean, it's bad when the only time he says something good is when the dementia's kicking in.
Biden meant to say 5%, not $55.
Wow, that's a wonderful sleep paralysis demon photo of him.
And he seemed to be leaning in to read a prompter more clearly. I don't know. I can't tell. But
okay, that would make sense.
Either way, he misspoke. And you might think to yourself, it's okay. Everyone misspeaks, right?
I mean, yeah. And, okay, if that's the idea, if he was supposed to say capping to 5%, that is not, I mean, that actually just sounds like he needs a new prescription on his fucking glasses. Because you can see how blurry eyes would make a percent sign potentially look like a 5.
No. In the rest of his speech, he froze up and had difficulty expressing what his policy proposals are. Let's stay on the topic of housing and rent increases and take a look.
We're going to bring rents down, as I said. We're going to build 2 million affordable homes.
Which is a bullshit term. The reason they say affordable homes is because it guarantees nothing. Anything is affordable to somebody. Like, I mean, if you're Elon Musk, all housing is affordable. So it's a meaningless term. The only, like, they do this in places where social housing is still more of a thing. I mean, in the US, it never really was to the same extent because there was a very specific decision at the very beginning of public housing to ensure that it would never be in competition with private landlords, and so it has always sucked. Sometimes more than others, but it has always been designed to be less accessible and less good than what's available on the private market. But, I mean, in Britain, they'll do this too. They'll be like, where social housing is still more of a thing. You don't even hear it talked about here. But they'll be like, we're gonna have, 10,000 units of affordable housing. And the thing about social housing in Britain actually, the rent is capped. It is indexed. When you say something is social housing, you are specifically saying that the rent is going to be in a particular range relative to, like, GDP. I'm not sure what the formula is, probably CPI or something like that. But, you know, with affordable housing, it doesn't mean any of that shit. I mean, that's why they love to use the term affordable.
The cap rent increases at 5% a year, so corporate landlords can't. God. Anyway, I don't want to get going. I'm going to get very upset.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's going to get very upset because I'm pretty sure. I mean, this guy has a 50-plus year career of being constantly on the side of those landlords. Of being constantly on the side of all the people who are squeezing the working class. So, I mean, I would imagine he gets annoyed with this stuff, because the reason he's doing it, the reason he's ever said anything that even is marginally good, is because he's had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the reality that the people whose votes he needs will need these things and will be attracted to him for saying them, as opposed to the ghoulish shit he spent his entire career in the Senate saying.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com.
Watch us move further and further right.
/team. So this was the speech that Biden gave at the end of NAACP convention. There are other snippets that we're going to show you. You should watch the entire speech for yourself if you have time, so you can get a sense of what we're talking about. It was a difficult speech to watch, to say the least. You know, there's the mental
well, I mean, it probably wasn't anywhere near transphobic and racist enough for Anna Transphobian.
Fine. Part of this story, there's also the fact that housing prices have exploded under Biden's watch. People have been complaining about private equity firms and corporate.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the other thing. Capping rent increases. I mean, this is like when they talk about, oh, we brought down inflation. But the trouble is, when that's just talking about increases going forward. It doesn't matter if the rent is going to increase more slowly if it's already out of reach.
Buying up the limited supply of housing we have, and then turning into essentially slumlords, increasing rents while refusing to maintain the buildings and actually take care of the units that they're renting out. And it isn't until now, when Biden is really, really struggling politically, that he decided, oh, maybe I should float something about this. But
I mean, and fair point. That is probably exactly why he's doing it, in order to cover over the fact that he's doing genocide, and that's pissing off people, and he's basically thrown trans people under the bus. He's trying to get reelected, sort of. Yeah, at least for like however many minutes are left in his fucking campaign. Well, because I can tell you why. I mean, I don't know the media landscape in Portugal, really. But the media landscape in the US, when TYT started to come into existence, was such that actually they would very much have been a breath of fresh air, because US media is so monolithic. It is the same shit. I mean, it's either just neoliberal imperialist propaganda or that, but way more racist. So, like, you know, so it just, anything that sounds different already becomes, and sounds like somewhat more progressive than the reactionary shit that the media is made up of largely, will get hold if there's some money backing it so that it gets the kind of visibility it needs. That's kind of what's going on. Like, I mean, yeah, my experience of media in Western Europe, and again, I really don't know Portugal at all, really. Like, I drink your port wine quite gladly, but I've never been there. I don't know the media landscape there at all. But in Western Europe, generally, there tends to be somewhat more diversity in terms of the media outlets that are available. Whereas in the U.S., it is just monolithic. basically hearing the exact same shit no matter where you turn. It's just different people saying it. So it's very easy to move slightly to the left of that and show up, and you're just immediately a breath of fresh air.
The constitutionality of the proposal here essentially would be a national law that would cap rent increases to 5%. It's nice to think about. It's not going to happen. And so it's just frustrating all around, both politically speaking and in regard to his performance of the speech.
Yeah, look, we could talk about housing, and right now Trump's a disaster on that. He would let private equity run wild, but the Democrats,
like Biden has done as well,
have let them run wild.
Yep.
And private equity is gigantic donors to both Democrats and Republicans, and so that's why they're never really
that's the other thing. Like, TYT will occasionally, unlike a lot of like progressive Democrats, they will occasionally call the Dems out for things they deserve to be called out for. Like that, I mean, like you don't hear like Sanders doing that. You don't hear like AOC or the Squad doing that for the most part. I mean, some of them have been somewhat willing to call them out on the genocide, but other than that, not really.
About it, but much more importantly, he can't finish a sentence. He can't finish any sentence. He finishes anything with, anyways. I mean, how many times have you heard him say, anyway?
The whole thing kind of reminds me a little bit of a bit that the comedian Patton Oswalt did on George W. Bush back when Bush was fake president, where he was talking about how people think that that Bush just can't talk, but he noticed that actually it depends on what he's talking about, because he was only making these gaffes and saying this incoherent shit when he was talking about things that matter to like working people, and he's talking about being compassionate and showing human decency. But when Bush was talking about just murdering large numbers of brown people, suddenly he would have no trouble getting his words out. He found his words every time then. And I think there is somewhat of a similar thing with Biden. Biden doesn't give a shit about tenants. He doesn't give a shit that the rent's too high. He only gives a shit about that to the extent that people have told him that he needs to at least seem to care about at least some ordinary people's concerns in order to, deal with the damage done by the fact that he's genociding Palestinians, and has managed to pick a losing fight with Yemen over the right to continue doing it.
Over just the last week, we're in the dozens. So, okay, let's say the prompter is wrong, and you're having trouble seeing the prompter. Okay, it happens, not that big a deal. But you don't know that your own policy proposal is to cap it at 5%, not $55? So if that was my proposal,
that is true. Although, in this case, I am inclined to think that it has to do with not giving a shit. I don't think that this was his proposal at all. I think that this was something his advisor said, throw this out there, never mind whether this would survive a legal challenge. Never mind any of that, just put it out there, get into the news cycle as appearing to propose something that theoretically might help some people. And so he just went and gave this speech.
And I accidentally read $55, I'd go, oh, I'm sorry, I meant 5%. Because I know it's not to cap it at $55. What is that? That doesn't even make sense. That's not a thing that you don't know what the rent is. How could you possibly cap it at a $55 increase? It makes no sense. He doesn't even realize it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, actually, there have been policies like that before. East Germany, actually, their policy on valuations of rental flats, residential flats, was, it was chef's kiss. Because they took a valuation from the 1930s and just kept it at that face value. So, I mean, they were constantly running a housing shortage. That was a constant problem they had to deal with. but the rent itself was practically nominal. Like, I mean, not only that, the rule was you could not evict somebody unless you arranged for some other accommodation for them. Like, so having caps like that are capped to like specific face value amounts is not unheard of. But fundamentally, the problem with it is, I mean, apart from the fact that no, he's not going to do this. He's never going to do this. He doesn't give a shit about this. This will be if he were to somehow, by some fucking miracle, win, stay in the race and win, this would be, you will never hear of this again. But even if he did it, it would still be bloody pointless, because the rent's still too fucking expensive. So you can either, put a cap on the rent that is lower than the current average rent, put a cap on how many, houses these companies can buy up, or you could massively increase the minimum wage so that people could fucking live on it. But yeah, I mean, just capping the annual increase just does not.
This guy is
do it.
Totally gone. So this is really one of the most embarrassing things that this country's gone through in a long time.
And look, it wasn't.
You mean it's more embarrassing than the time that Biden decided to lie to everyone and claim that his proposal for a ceasefire that he doesn't want, which was actually just a modified version of a proposal Hamas had already accepted weeks before, was actually an Israeli proposal, even knowing that Israel was going to reject it, as indeed they did immediately. See, that was pretty, that was pretty fucking, that was choice. That was a really sort of special level of...
Just those moments of the speech, as I mentioned earlier, the entirety of the speech was incredibly difficult. He struggled through it. In fact, I want to give you one other example, and it has to do with Biden's, thoughts on things like high-speed rail and how important it is. Let's take a look.
Yeah, it's so important that basically fuck all's happened to do with it.
Like America's first high-speed rail line that's going to take you from Las Vegas to Los Angeles in 2 hours. Create over 30,000 jobs, and guess what? Save billions of tons because of pollution. Because people, all the studies show, you can get from point A to point B in a train or a vehicle the same distance, you take the train.
Yeah, I mean, that much is true. Like, they opened a new, I forget where this line was opened. It was in Wisconsin to the Twin Cities or something like that, just recently. And they were overrun. They had planned for a fairly high number of passengers to take an interest in it. They were totally unprepared for the number of people who wanted on.
Again, his performance there, awful, clear cognitive decline. And then on top of it, he's talking about the California high-speed rail, which we've been pouring so much money into. There's no real movement on it. And it is a project that has been a complete utter disaster and a waste of taxpayer money, which is so frustrating. But
well, yes, again, what they're pointing out here is that he's talking about things he's done nothing to move, that he just happens to know are the kinds of things, well, maybe he doesn't know, his advisors anyway know, are the kinds of things the people whose votes he needs would like to hear about, since they're not going to hear him saying, I've decided to stop genocide in Gaza.
Again, we don't have to focus on the policy and how much of a failure the high-speed rail project has been. The whole reason why we're showing you this is because of how terrible the speech was.
It hasn't been a failure, there's just been no interest in doing it. There's not been a serious attempt. Buttigieg in particular has massively prioritized individual vehicle ownership based non-solutions to climate change. So all sorts of shit to subsidize purchases of extremely expensive electrical vehicles and stuff. He's not shown any interest in that.
And it's just honestly not fair to Democratic voters.
Yeah, the Borealis route, that's the one.
to continue pretending like Biden has a shot at winning this election. And it's also not fair to Biden to have him do these speeches. It humiliates him, and it's just not fair for him to end his political career.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't give a shit what's fair for him. I mean, except in the sense that I think that, I mean, there's some indications maybe his cognitive decline is enough that it could fall under elder abuse. But other than that, honestly, fuck him. His career has been interminable, and none of it has been good. The guy got into politics to oppose the civil rights movement. He stayed in it to just make it even harder for people to get out from under student loan debt, to put huge numbers of black people in prison for bullshit, to take away benefits from working class people who desperately needed them. I mean, it's been his entire, like, fucking political career is just a heap of shite.
His entire career has been a political career. And this is how it's going to end?
Yes, his entire career has been a political career. This is the sort of analysis you can only get from Anna-Transphobian.
Yeah, well, definitely. tyt.com/campaign/dropout. Links in the description box. So, look, the Democrats have been promising us that rail system for what, 2 decades, 3 decades? Never delivered. Again, back to the speech though. The most important thing for you guys to remember is that Biden doesn't just have to prove that he's not in mental decline. If he proves that, he doesn't win the election. He then has to make up 15, 16 points.
Yes, he has to deal with the fact that nobody liked him to begin with.
How is that guy going to prove to you that he's in perfectly great shape and then do a 16-point miraculous comeback that no other politician has ever done? It's not
well,
even.
I mean, I think we're seeing the attempt. The attempt is suddenly to revive all this shit that they've done nothing about, that they've taken zero interest in, but that they know, their voters are going to like. That's the attempt. That's the whole thing. I mean, it's pathetic. It lacks credibility. Oh, see, I specifically put this here so I would not forget it and go on stream and then have to walk all the way across the room to find it. And then I forgot about it again. Because I was so, I was distracted by the ICJ's advisory opinion.
Remotely possible. Please, for God's sake, try to win this election. Get totally new ticket.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks.
Yeah, no. Bye, Jenk. Okay, so that was a short thing. As I said, there's a bunch of stuff. We've got some Xander Hall bullshit. We got some Bush bullshit. Got a bunch more Young Turfs bullshit. We got some Darman shit. What's everybody's pleasure? See, the reason the reason that sometimes I'm wearing this and sometimes I'm not wearing this is simply that I have a very unergonomic setup here. And it's a huge pain in the ass to get up and get it if I've already started. Because I have to, like, move the computer desk, I have to move all this shit. So I brought this over so I wouldn't forget, and then I forgot. Okay, do you have a link for that? I mean, the trouble is I don't have Instagram. Oh, here we go, yes. I am Grambling. Okay. Who is I am Grambling? That is not a name I've heard of before.
But that's an aside. That's what I'm here for in terms of work.
Unloads on Democratic cowards. I mean, she's a... yeah, I saw it. I think he's channeling a line from the Joker.
I'm here because I want to talk to you all about all of this craziness that you see in the media about Joe Biden.
Okay. That's a pretty broad category here. What are we going to be talking about? Are we going to talk about the fact that he's doing genocide, which you seem kind of okay with? I mean, not and not sufficiently unokay with it anyway to actually do anything meaningful about it. Or what?
And I'm just ripping the Band-Aid off, because I think...
No, put the fucking Band-Aid back on. That thing stinks. I think that's gangrene.
That it's really important that people get the straight truth. And I feel like there has been a lot of smoke screens that have been going on about this, and that people have not been getting told the full story here. And
okay, are we gonna find out what you're specifically talking about here?
Put all my cards out on the table because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm telling you that as who I am. I do not have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going on. But I believe that you all deserve to know what I see in this moment as I see it.
One of the things that gets me about like fucking Sanders and AOC in particular, and I think there have been a couple of other members of the squad who have decided to be just Biden dead enders in this moment. It's like, at this point, I could kind of see that early on when it seemed like, when you could say, from a career standpoint, it makes more sense to suck up to the Democratic Party leadership than to suck up to your voters. That is always the issue with the Democrats, because the leadership and the voters, the donors and the voters, are completely at odds on all sorts of just key issues. But at this point, the Democratic Party leadership have all realized that they've got nothing. That they basically, the only way that they have no chance of beating Trump with Biden, that getting rid of him would result in a massive sigh of relief for much of the population. At this point, there is no political cost to just saying, yeah, fuck Biden. Actually, not only is he clearly past it, but he wasn't that good to begin with.
And I'm gonna take you through my thinking, and if you disagree with it, and if you think it's terrible, and if you think I'm wrong, that's fine, but I at least want you to know what I see, and we can all come to our own conclusions. All right? So let's get into it. We saw, 2-3 weeks ago now, the president debated Donald Trump. And
I mean, that's one way to put it. I mostly saw him stumble around and talk about golf, which is kind of like, that's old rich white dudes all over. It just sort of, abandoning the even pretext that these guys are adversaries in any meaningful way, and just, good-natured ribbing about who's worse at golf. No, never mind golf. Because Biden beat Medicare.
That debate sucked, okay? It sucked for everybody. Donald Trump sucked. Joe Biden didn't do well, to say the least. And it was just, not great.
Well, Donald Trump, I don't know if he sucked from the perspective of the people he's trying to reach, though. Because he did the thing. I didn't watch the whole thing. But what I did see did suggest he was doing the thing they like, which is to jump in there and just immediately throw out some bullshit one-liner that completely throws the other person off balance because they're going from their prepared remarks. So I don't know if it necessarily sucked for him as much as it sucked for Biden.
I think, to be very frank, it pretty closely
Yeah, that's an interesting word that she just threw in there.
Captured what I think a lot of the mood in the country is right now, which is that people don't love where we're at. They don't.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just not loving the genocide and the fact that literally nobody in this election is proposing to do even the bare minimum about climate change and how we got this pandemic that under Biden has caused 800,000 preventable deaths that would have been prevented if Biden had taken even the most basic fucking public health precautions, but he was so eager to get rid of those without even waiting for it to be safe. So yeah, not loving that at all.
Love our options. A lot of people don't love that we have the same exact matchup all over again.
Yeah, which nobody wanted in the first place.
Which is to say that the debate didn't change much at all. It didn't really change a lot in terms of people's perceptions, in terms of where the electorate is at.
Well, yes, but the point there, though, I mean, I heard Biden's campaign trying to trot that out as well, and they were like, yeah, it didn't really change anything. Everyone hated him to begin with, and it's like, yeah, maybe that's something you should act on.
And going into the debate, I'm pretty sure a lot of people knew that the president is old.
You could have knocked me over with a feather. I had no idea. Motherfucker, there are people there are people on this planet, people in this country, with gray hair, who were not born when this motherfucker's political career began. Like, he is a testament to the lack of any kind of meaningful democracy in the U.S.
The president is very old. Donald Trump is also very old.
Yeah, and they both suck, yeah. I mean, welcome to this conversation that everybody else has already been having.
And a racist and a neo-Nazi. But
yeah, but your guy's a racist and he's doing an active genocide right now. And oh, that's right, they're also, like, both rapists who have decided to contest this election on whose dementia is the worst.
But anyways, I'm not even going to talk about Trump right now. So we knew that going into it. And I feel like people knew that coming out of it. Now, what we also saw, and what I've seen, is that
Burger King.
A lot of people who follow politics, a lot that I've noticed of kind of this like class of people above, I shouldn't say above, but like separate from voters. Like, we all know we live in this country.
Wait, okay. I have to say, this is taking forever for her to get to a point.
There's voters, and then there's people with power.
Okay, is she, like, accidentally stumbling ass backwards into the idea that we live in capitalism and that actually, therefore, the superficially democratic mechanisms that, such as they are, that do exist are kind of meaningless because the capitalist class owns the economy? Is that what she's just kind of accidentally getting to?
And there's people with a lot of money, and there's people with a lot of influence, and in the country that we live in, we have everyday people, and we have voters, and we have government, and then you kind of have this class of people in between.
Not in between, on top.
From pundits and media.
Oh no, those people aren't on top. Those people are more or less, I would say, on the same level.
And wealthy people and donors and...
Okay, that is not... I mean, this class analysis... okay, I feel it's almost churlish to say that AOC's class analysis isn't great. But the propagandists and the people the propagandists work for are not exactly in quite the same class. These pundits and all these other dickheads, those people are not the same class as the people who are paying them. Not exactly, anyway. I mean, they're closer. But in terms of the amount of actual power, yes, this was a suggestion from Imperialism Bad. This is AOC, very, very slowly moving towards a point. In Blair Witch vision.
organization leaders and whatever, and they
Welcome back,
kind
Erica.
of occupy this space in between. Oh, look at that. They kind of occupy this space
Okay, neat visual effect, whoever in her chat did that.
in between voters and the policies that we get. And a lot of times that's why government sucks, right?
I would have said all the time. That, like, literally 100% of the time when government sucks, it's because it's in capitalism, and so it's doing the things the capitalists want, rather than what the rest of us would like.
Like, because lobbyists are there and whatever's happening. Anyways, so the debate happens, it doesn't go well. And then all of a sudden afterwards...
Like, did she prepare for this? This is a 54-minute video, I'm just noticing.
Get a lot of people in this strata, and I'm not here to dismiss if you think, for example, if you are of the opinion that Joe Biden should be replaced as a nominee, I'm not here to attack you on that. I'm not here to, like, whatever, but I just want you to know what I'm seeing. And this group of people, right, like, if you believed this before, that didn't change anything. What changed was this class of people after that debate. Fine.
I mean, she's not wrong there. She's not wrong that you had, like, an entire media apparatus trying to sugarcoat. She's trying to suggest. I think that would be, like, the most absolutely generous interpretation of what she's getting at. But yeah, I mean, what she's saying here is true in the sense that if you look at the polls, people were already raising the issue of Biden's cognitive decline back in 2020. People have been concerned about that all along. Months ago, a majority of the population, in polling said they wanted somebody other than Biden to be the nominee because he was past it. And it's taken the, you're not alone, Erica. What she's trying to get at, she is like, it's like, if there were a GPS attached to this that were given her directions to her point, it would be constantly going, attempt U-turn at next to opportunity.
Now, what I am concerned by when it comes to this case is that they are, the case for this is about polling. Like, there's someone here in the chat, right? He's behind in every swing state. This isn't an argument. Others may be polling better.
Yeah, like, I mean, no, this is not a Sanders Stan channel, but I decided to just have a look to see if this was still the case, and it is. Bernie Sanders is not only the most popular Democrat, he's like the only popular Democrat. Like, he is part of a very small number of politicians in Washington who there's an overall favorable opinion of. Despite everything. Just, basically just by standing next to this shit show and appearing and having an undeserved reputation of not being a part of it, he manages to be more popular. But I mean, I honestly think at this point, because really the real thrust of their campaign is just, we have to not have Trump again, please. And most people do agree with that much anyway. I mean, even Republicans, it turns out, Republican voters would prefer a generic Republican to Trump. So this is a matchup between people nobody wanted. This is not Coke versus Pepsi, as they used to say a while ago, talking about electoral politics, because this is everybody's Pepsi,
etc. I think that
except it has shite in it.
Being laid out, right? It is about the polling, it's about the data, and again, I'm not here to dismiss people. And I think it's very important to say that. And I think it's very important to say, in general, that I'm not here to question or attack the motives of people's, regardless of their position on this. Like, I think what is motivating I'm sorry why these things keep popping up. I don't know why. I think it's also July, but I totally can concede that a person very invested can have all these counterpoints to that. Now, to me, like brass tacks.
Are we going to get to a point now? I just skipped ahead 4 minutes.
When I think about the case in terms of supporting a Joe Biden presidency or being okay with Joe Biden continuing to be the nominee, I'm looking at...
On the CSN?
A watch, and I'm looking at a clock, and I'm looking at a calendar.
Wow, so she's got all sorts of means of, like traditional means of keeping time.
And I think that if, personally, people want to have this conversation...
This is supposed to be, like, let me read you, to everyone in chat other than Imperialism Bad who suggested this and probably already saw this title. Congresswoman AOC spills the tea and unloads on Democratic cowards on Instagram Live. Are you getting that? Are you getting tea being spilled? I don't even hear a kettle boiling.
6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, it's a very different landscape of logistics.
Yeah, like a year ago, there wasn't a massive active genocide that the U.S. had started a whole new war in order to be able to continue doing. A war that they're being humiliated in, no less. I mean, people usually use the term Nazi shit to refer to, like, just evil things. But it's worth remembering, one aspect of Nazi shit is being so obsessed with a particular evil thing that you manage to fuck up your war effort. Like, I mean, the U.S. has burned through, like, the credibility of pretty much the entire international structure that they largely created in their image to legitimize their position in the international system. And now they're burning through the credibility of their military as a means of terror because Yemen is just absolutely humiliating the U.S. Navy. And this is all in the service of continuing a fucking genocide that, apart from just, like, that's inherently a bad thing, also just happens to be, you know, tremendously unpopular with the people he needs to vote for him.
Person, I shouldn't say every single person, I'm going to say in this class of people that you see coming out now, right? If you're an everyday person that has an opinion, I'm not coming for you. But this whole class of people who are coming with this other opinion now have supported the president the entire time. And many of those people are the same people who closed ranks around anybody who even wanted to raise this conversation a year ago. Fine.
Yeah, I mean, and what she's saying here is entirely true. I mean, we've been gaslit on this in the true original sense of the term for quite a long time. I mean, one of the wild things, Will Stansel, who is just such a blatant liberal clout-chasing schmuck, that I almost feel reluctant to use his name someplace because it might somehow, like, increase his value in the algorithm, and that's clearly all he cares about. You know, the guy who is trying to explain how people aren't actually poor, it's just the media is telling them that they're poor, so that's why they feel that the economy sucks. Not because they can't pay rent, but because the media is telling them they can't pay rent, or something like that. Well, somebody pulled out a tweet of his from 2020 where he's saying, how the hell can anyone think that Joe Biden is fit to be running for president, let alone being president? He's clearly past it. That was in 2020.
But
even Will Stansel, the guy who is just like liberal Muzak on Twitter, got this right the first time.
To me, like, I'm looking at a lot of different things. And I want to communicate...
Yeah, she's looking at a clock. She's looking at a fucking calendar. She's got a watch.
Some things...
Not a cell phone in sight, though. Just vibing.
Even if you don't particularly the case for even...
Where the hell is she filming this, by the way? It looks like she's outside a pub toilet. It looks like she's waiting for the door to be opened for the fucking pub bathroom to free up.
If you don't support the president continuing as the nominee on substance, merits, policy, etc., let's take that aside, right? What day is it right now? What, July 17th? I've been working like a bunch, so I think today is July 17th. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments if it's not. But the point is, even when this conversation was like really kicking up, July 13th, I think people need to understand the reality and the gravity of what these people are proposing. And I'm not saying this is all a reason not to do it, but I do think that people are talking about this without
the reality and the gravity. Okay, not the reality and the gravity, say, of the genocide or anything like that, or the many real and grave things that nobody is doing anything about. And like, no matter who like Biden gets replaced with, nothing's gonna be done about those things because they don't care. Like, the Democrats have already, they've decided they don't give a fuck. They are fully invested in this shit. If they change, it will be because their feet are literally put to the fire.
Two eyes wide open as to what this really means.
Maybe a restream got distracted waiting for AOC to make a point.
The Democratic convention is in, 4 weeks or so? The state of Ohio has legal ballot access issues.
No, they don't. Not anymore, actually, because they changed, in order to ensure that fucking Biden could get on there, the state of Ohio changed the law on this. So as long as it is like 65 days before the election, it's cool in Ohio.
That require a name to be enrolled and certified on their ballot even before the convention. And that's not because of Democrats. That's because of...
Hang on a second. What is the planned date for the convention? What two messages? That may be some sort of other thing. Yeah, no, actually, okay. August 19th to 22nd. So, 60 days would still put that in October. So, yeah, no, what she's saying here is wrong, actually. The convention, it will still be in time to put whatever nominee is on the ballot in Ohio.
Republicans. And to people, there are some people that quibble. And they say, oh, well, that's not really true, because they actually passed this other law.
Yeah, because, I mean, the reason that the people are saying that isn't really true is because it isn't really true. That's why you shouldn't say that, because it's not really true.
That allows the deadline to change. That law that allowed that deadline to quote-unquote change also gets enacted and enrolled something like 60 or 90 days after passage, which now puts us in a legal gray zone.
No, it doesn't, actually. There is the legal gray zone. See, I mean, one thing to remember about this is this law was in no way attached to it being Biden. There's nothing in the law that says it has to be Biden. That was the assumption at the time that the law was enacted. But there's nothing in the law that says that. And the law very specifically says it's like, you've got to be, like, I think it's like 60, 65 days before the election, and you're good. So the convention will be in time.
So whether you think it's above board or whether you don't think it's above board, I can tell you that it is guaranteed, and it is virtually guaranteed, and it has been confirmed by the Republican Speaker of the House that Republicans are already preparing legal challenges to any name change on the ballot that may happen, occur, arise, or be possible.
Yeah, they might, but I mean, this law would not actually allow them to win that. I mean, the only way that this actually happens is if the Ohio courts, which are dodgy as hell in many ways, were to just ignore what the law says and just deny Democrats ballot access at all. And that strikes me as a very risky move, actually. Not because people are in love with the Democrats, which polling again says actually a lot of people really aren't. But because that would essentially mean, you know, it's one thing. Okay, there's all sorts of stuff to unpack here, because the downside of actually having a situation where like Trump would run unopposed in Ohio essentially is, for the Republicans as well, is that suddenly the presidential election does not matter to even the people it matters to, because they're being denied the opportunity to actually vote for the person they were going to vote for, to the extent that they were going to vote for somebody. I mean, that would be, I mean, it's one thing when Ohio has done all the fucked up manipulations and shit that Ohio is kind of famous for at this point. The ones that gave gave the election to Bush in 2004 and all sorts of fucked up shit since then. But, I mean, the amount of heat that would come down and up if the Ohio courts were going to claim that, going to decide that Trump runs basically unopposed in the state of in the key state of Ohio. I mean, I think that would be a bit of a shitstorm, and I think even like the Republicans who are all over the court system in Ohio would be a little bit hesitant to release that level of shit.
And so for us, I want us to, like, opening this conversation, I think it's important for us to consider the stakes, okay? Before you even get into the merits.
I mean, the stakes are, he's not winning anyway. So, like, let's say that the Republicans decide to do what would really be a very much a nuclear option and try to, like, deny the Democratic nominee ballot access in the state of Ohio. Well, then Trump still wins, most likely. Which is the situation we already got. Which is the situation that so many of these people, so many of these donors suddenly were led to stop covering this shit up, stop pretending everything was okay, and start saying that he's past it and they need to find somebody else. Because actually it turns out a lot of them would like to not lose to Trump if it can be avoided, and they think it possibly can be.
Talk about the stakes. If this is even something that can be opened, right? And what we know is that we can virtually guarantee, Mike Johnson came out and said that they're absolutely...
It's not even Pride Month.
...absolutely preparing legal challenges to wherever it's possible. And I want to tell you, those legal challenges are most viable where? In the same handful of swing seats that are needed to win the presidency. I'm not saying every single one is counted out, but I am saying that's what's at the table, and guess what?
Well, guess what? Then you're actually, I mean, leaving aside the fact that if they succeeded in those legal challenges, they would be unleashing a huge fucking shitstorm. They would be totally delegitimizing an election that, as it stands right now, they have basically won. They would be delegitimizing it in the eyes of people for whom was legitimate to begin with. Which, I mean, obviously, it isn't. It's an absolute fucking farce. But, like, seriously, even Putin understands you've got to have some kind of opponents. Even like most dictators know you've got to at least have some fake opposition. In your election, somebody who's going to, a sheepdog candidate, sort of a Bernie Sanders kind of thing. Like, there's a reason for that, and the reason is it creates the impression of legitimacy. It looks like there was some sort of a competition that was won. If the Republicans were to do this, and actually were to succeed in those legal challenges, I don't think the issue would even be Trump winning. The issue would be that the U.S. electoral system would fucking implode, because, like, that would be, like, the last fucking straw, I think, for a lot of people. Because it's like, it's one thing when you have all of this bullshit that goes on. All of this stuff that renders it, you know, takes any kind of, like, you know, even whiff of democracy out of the process. But it's all sort of behind the scenes, and nominally, at the very least, you have this choice. It's a shitty choice, but there's the choice. But what happens when you have a situation where literally you don't have that, where the choice is actually outright taken away? I mean, I don't see how that is something that would be good for the Republicans, even. Yeah, just if you're having trouble with that, just type your stuff in Discord and tell me that it's there.
Republicans, they mount that legal challenge, the possibility of our elections being decided by a Supreme Court ruling skyrocket.
Yeah, I mean, that's already happened, and Democrats these days, like, look nostalgically on the outcome of that. To the extent that they don't even acknowledge the reality of who won Florida if, you know, but for the Supreme Court's ruling. Because it fits so much better into their narrative to blame it on the Green Party.
Okay? I'm not here to use fear. I'm not saying this to use fear.
Okay, I've never really listened to her speak before, chat. Is this how all of her talks go? Is it just her prefacing? Is it like 200 pages of foreword and then maybe a paragraph of story?
Of their position. But I need us to understand the stakes. Okay? And
okay, that is so weird. Neither of those things, I don't see any reason that would trigger any kind of, like, censorship bot or something like that. Okay, so what Erica said and Restream decided to just ignore was, A, I'm not hearing any tea being spilled, and very definitely not any unloading on Dems. Yeah, that's a mood. I'm not hearing, like, I mean, do we need to, like, skip ahead to find the unloading? And the U.S. military's problem is it's a sledgehammer, but all the available targets are flies. Wait, I mean, and on that latter one, I would add, the trouble is also that, I mean, as Emmanuel Lasker once pointed out in, I think it was a World Chess Championship match, the threat is more potent than its execution. And what we're seeing in the Red Sea is the execution of the threat and it being very lackluster. Like, to the extent that at one point a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. was saying, you know, if you just drop your sanctions on Israeli shipping, well, we'll take you off the terrorist list and we'll just call it a draw. I mean, and that was before they hit the fucking USS Eisenhower aircraft carrier.
That's point.
The flies are just, I mean, the problem is, it turns out flies can bite.
One. Like, I can tell you that I have been, and I want to tell you also why I'm telling you this.
Oh, great. More preface. We're still in the fucking preface and she's added a foreword. Like, somebody fucking diagram the structure of this talk.
Is because the last 2 or 3 weeks of members of Congress or quote-unquote Democratic sources or what have you going on background and, how did a filter get on here? Oh my god.
Oh, wow. I mean, like, does she not have editors? It isn't even her video. It's somebody else uploaded her Instagram live to YouTube.
Okay, I think I turned off. Sorry, guys. The possibility, and okay, sorry. So what's
Oh God! Thank you. We're gonna have more preface. Everybody, I was worried that we were gonna start to get to a point, but we've avoided it. There's more preface. She's got something else she wants to tell us. Like, I mean, surely a member of Congress has some kind of budget to have somebody come in and edit this shit.
really upset me is that these conversations, I believe in transparency. At the same time, litigating like huge conversations among people of power in public can dramatically hurt our chances.
Well, yeah, so she believes in transparency, except that actual transparency about the stakes here and powerful people showing just a little bit of honesty hurts their chances.
Depending on the outcome of that conversation. And so sometimes certain conversations are best held in private, especially if there's ambiguity or a lack of decision on it. And so...
There's no ambiguity, though. There's no lack of decision. It's very clear. The people who she's talking about belatedly are all saying, yeah, he needs to go.
What I see right now, and I want you all to know, is that over the last several weeks, there have been lots of Democrats who have been giving little anonymous quotes to the press, to some journalists, to print, and I'm not here to knock the press on it. I'm here to knock...
Is this a butterfly?
...my colleagues on it. Because to me, I think that's, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it because it's after midnight, that's bullshit.
She won't say bullshit before midnight? Is she a bullshit vampire?
Like, if you have an opinion, say it with your chest and say it in public.
I prefer to say my opinions with my mouth. I've never been able to get my chest to speak my opinions.
But the idea that you are an elected official...
I mean, I think if I tried to get I could do that, but I think I'd probably get my channel banned. I think I'd have to go on RedTube.
And you are supposed to be responsible for a community, and you're just gonna like text some journalist on the low and say, this is what I think, but don't put my name next to it. What are you here to do?
Well, yeah, but what does that say about the culture of your party if people have these serious concerns and nobody wants to go on record? What does it exactly say about the culture of this supposed model of democracy that we are like showing to the world? See, be like us, be like us. You have, this wonderful democratic party here. There's even democracy right in the name. If, people who actually are in relatively influential positions feel they have to go on background about it. What does it exactly say about the nature of the party? And let me just notice something here. I mean, this is going to seem like it's a bit of a left field connection, but okay, you had all this shit. I mean, they have the rotating villain strategy when the Democrats still controlled both houses of Congress plus the White House. And they ended up settling for like Manchin and Sinema were the two villains who were going to make sure that all this stuff the Democrats totes wanted to do, they absolutely were serious. They weren't bullshitting you. They wanted to do the things. But it was Manchin and Sinema. There's just no way to use leverage. They don't have whips or anything like that. But, I mean, notice this isn't about a vote. This is Democrats in office who are just talking to the press and sorry, my throat is very dry. Expressing a view, not a vote in Congress or anything like that. And they're so worried about the professional repercussions of going against the leadership on this that they're going on background. That I bring this up because the thing is, there actually is, the leadership does have clout. There's a reason that, you know, Biden has been shoved down our fucking throats twice. Despite the fact that, I mean, there's no evidence of any, like, popular enthusiasm, any grassroots enthusiasm for his ass. Nobody wanted this guy. It's just more evidence that actually, yeah, this whole thing is just such a farce. I don't think that she has a strategy. I think she decided to do an Instagram live, and she didn't actually really work out what the hell she was gonna say. Like, so far, there's, like, literally, I mean, we've only watched a little under a quarter of this thing. It's 54 minutes. 55 nearly. And so far, you could condense this whole thing without any loss of information, without any loss of, like, a message to, like, a 1 minute short.
If that's your opinion and if that's what you think is best for the country, put your name on it, okay? But instead, it's all this little pick a little, talk a little to whatever text.
Is that an expression? Pick a little, talk a little? The fuck does it even mean?
Some pundit about what they think because they're too cowardly to, like, come out with a public opinion. I'm not coming.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, you're coming from the position of taking the most fucking cowardly possible view on this subject publicly. I mean, it is so rich for somebody who's decided to just take the view that she knows has no adverse consequences from people in power, that she knows actually will annoy a lot of the people who put her in office in the first place, but will not at all, but will nothing but endear her to the people who are in power, because that she's showing loyalty to the leadership's choice. Fundamentally, I mean, she is a model for democratic centralism. I never heard what before. She, you know, she is standing there and taking the official line of the party and going to the mat for it, even though it clearly sucks and internally it probably will not last. I mean, she is sticking her neck so far. I mean, she is not sticking her neck out the window at all. She is so far back in the window, she's in the fucking broom closet with this opinion. Like, I mean, so it is a little bit rich. Oh, pick a little, say a little. Yeah, I mean, what the fuck is that? Maybe that's a Westchester thing, like steamed hams.
For the people who have made a public statement and put their name on it. Like, Lord knows, I've done plenty of that myself. I'm talking about people who are too scared to say what they want to say.
What are they scared of, though?
In public, but somehow not afraid to say what they want to say to a journalist so long as they promise not to use their name.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a reason for that, usually. Usually there's a reason somebody does not want to say something that would piss powerful people off with their name on it.
That's a bunch of horse shit. And if...
Wow, we really are past midnight. There's bullshit, there's horse shit. I mean, you got, it's all the shit groups. This, that's the title for this. AOC is serving up all the shit groups. There's probably gonna be some fucking cat shit coming up too. But that will have to wait. It is time for us to wrap up. It is nearly 1 a.m. and also I need to get more water. My throat is really annoyingly dry. But okay. Thank you to everyone who's joined in. Thank you to Imperialism Bad for this suggestion. I think this is quite interesting and frustrating as hell. just waiting for her to like get to a fucking point. It's like that MST3K movie where nothing ever happens. It's just fucking rock climbing, filmed boringly for like an hour and a half practically before they like vaguely see a dinosaur someplace. But, I mean, maybe we'll come back to this tomorrow. But thanks to everyone who joined in. It's always good to see you all in chat. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back for the language stream over on Hyperpolyglotting at 4:30 p.m. on Twitch. For anyone who has not got that URL, there it is. Let me also drop the Discord link for anyone who isn't there already. And I will be back at 11:30 p.m. US Eastern Time to continue this tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you then. Even Caleb makes a point quicker than this. Oh yeah. Yeah, Caleb pauses a lot. And he adds in lots of sort of condescending verbal bling. But I mean, this is just I can see why she hasn't got an editor, actually. Because I mean, as an editor myself, I would throw up my hands. You could not pay me enough to try to edit this into something watchable. Have a good night, and as always, good night, good luck, and fuck Xanderhall.